In the beginning, there was beige. Everything was beige. The PC, the monitor, keyboards and mice, even the clothes. It was all beige, but it was cool. In the second age, there was black. Black brought beauty to our world. Black was sleek. Black was elegant. Everything was black, and it was cool. In the third age, enthusiasts brought light into the world. At first, this light was cold cathode ray tubes, and we had to take off our side panels, cut holes in them, make new ones, but we could see the insides of our PC, and it was cool. In the fourth age, the light breathed for the first time, for the diodes of light submittance had come and found homes in our fans, and formed great strips of light. Cases began to open portals through which the light could be seen, and although still singular in color, their variety grew, as did our builds, and it was cool. In the fifth age, diodes evolved, no longer constrained to just a single color. You could change your rig's look with just the press of a button. It would open a world of possibilities. They spread to motherboards and graphics cards. Great swathes of glass adorned our cases to see their splendor, and it was cool. In the sixth age, our understanding of the diodes grew, and we could finally address them. As a crowd or an individual, we could make them all unique, as would our builds be. To celebrate this magnificent accomplishment, the makers called forth to the finest modders in the land. Create us the most magnificent machines you can, they said. We will show the world the 16.8 million possibilities, all at the same time, with this rainbow demonstration mode. Every person will see their perfect color, and the world will rejoice. The people came in droves to see the wonders the modders had created. It gave them hope. It gave them something to strive to, something to emulate, and it was cool. Or at least it would have been, but people wanted to emulate those builds so much that they decided to run the LEDs in that demo mode, and yay, Unicorn Puke was born into this world. Some resisted though, some fought back. The nocturnals and the quiet ones held out. But now, another has fallen.
Hello and welcome to Making Computers. Today we're looking at these brand new Be Quiet Lightwings fans. Love it or loathe it, RGB is definitely here to stay, and Be Quiet have been one of the few companies to resist it thus far. But they have been slowly introducing little touches across their product stack here and there, and these are their first ARGB fans, developed for those of you that want just a little bit more illumination in your case. Now initially these will only be sold separately, but we'll be looking in depth at the performance of these fans in pretty much all their use cases, on a single tower cooler, on this silent loop 2 all-in-one cooler, and also replacing the case fans in a silent base 802. Now, whilst looks are almost entirely subjective, I'll try and give you an objective review of their aesthetics. See how much light they give off compared to some other ARGB fans on the market, and in what circumstances these might suit your build. They're available in 140 and 120mm sizes, and both sizes have a standard and high-speed variant, all of which are PWM controlled. These will be available in single packs and packs of 3. Those packs of 3 will also come with an RGB hub for up to 6 connections. Strangely though, they don't come with any PWM splitters or hubs, so you'll need to factor that additional cost in if you want those, or just make sure that your motherboard has enough headers. We've got both the high speed and standard 120mm variants today. Let's get these unboxed and see what they're like and go through the specs. You want to do it? Are you sure? Okay. Seriously? Well, yeah, I guess that's on me. So, to the specs. So these 120mm variants run at 1700 RPM or up to 2500 for the high speed variant. And at that speed they'll put out 20.6 decibels or 31 for the high speed, with 41.5 CFM of air or 52.3, 1.66mm H2O static pressure for the standard and 2.6 for the high speed. These fans have an expected lifespan of 60,000 hours while run at 25 degrees C. But this is under very controlled conditions, so your use case may vary. These are standard 5V ARGB header with a pass-through on each fan, and as I said, are PWM. The 3 packs of fans come with an RGB hub. It's been sized like a 2.5-inch drive and comes with screws to mount it into a drive bay somewhere to keep it nice and secure, and also a double-sided 3M pad if you just want to stick it somewhere. The cables are nice and long at 50 centimeters, so they should be able to be routed wherever you need them. Although it's a shame they're not sleeved like on the Silent Wings. At least it's not been sleeved in the rubbery stuff they've put on the RGB cable for the splitter. It's horrible thick stuff that makes a lot of mess when it's clumped up together. The specifications aren't the only differences between the two fans. The standard fan has a 7-blade design impeller and the high-speed one has a 9-bladed design. Now this is for the standard one to be a more silent airflow focus, so maybe more suitable to go on a case, and then the high-speed variant a more static pressure focused design. It's sort of reminiscent of a gentle typhoon, so that might be more suitable to go on a cooler, especially radiators. For the LEDs, Be Quiet has employed a ring design with 18 LEDs around the circumference of the fan. These can be viewed in this thick frame bit on the front and also on a thinner ring at the back of the fan too. However, that LED ring will decrease the amount of space available for the airflow and impeller. I'll be comparing these fans in performance to Be Quiet's own Silent Wings 3. So for instance, this has an internal diameter of 115mm with an impeller width of 113, and both of the Light Wings designs have a 105mm in a diameter and a 103mm impeller width. So there's a 10mm difference there, and without knowing the results yet, I would think that that would make quite a significant difference. So it'll be interesting to see if Be Quiet has been able to make some of that up with the design of the impeller and the motors. The problem there though is that these aren't really competitors. If you're after an RGB fan, you're not really going to be thinking about this Silent Wings. So because of that, I'll also be testing the Corsair IQ ML120 RGB Elite fans. These have a completely different design to the Light Wings fans. They have the LEDs housed in the central hub, and whilst this design does mean that the central hub is a little wider than on the Silent Wings or Light Wings, it does regain that width on the external perimeter of the fan, which is the bit that's going to move fastest and generate the largest amount of airflow. One thing all of these fans do really well is in the anti-vibration dampening in the corners. All of them, the ML120s, the Silent Wing and the Light Wing, all have rubber dampening in the corners. But more importantly, it's right to the edge of the screw hole. That means that the screw isn't still connecting to the hard outer frame and transferring vibrations into the case where they then get amplified. I see too many fans nowadays with some vibration dampening in the corners, but they leave a gap around the screw and you're just going to transfer them into the case still. So it's really good to see that all of these have a really well designed dampening in the corners. So these all need to get put through their paces, so enjoy some B-roll while I'll go and do a few days worth of benchmarks. The first set of results we'll look at is from the fans being used on a single tower cooler. I used a Silverstone AR03, which none of these fans were designed to be used on, so none should have any sort of advantage. The results are from a 20-minute run on Cinebench with the first 10 minutes discarded, and we use a delta CPU temperature with the ambient temperature being taken throughout the test rather than just an average. As you'll see on the chart, most of the fans have two results. One where the fan was turned down for a total system volume of 35 decibels, and one with the fan ran at maximum speed, posting a delta temperature of 47.6 degrees centigrade, just ahead of the high-speed Light Wings, which managed 48.4 C over ambient. The Silent Wings 3 is a degree or two cooler at 46.6 degrees C, narrowly pipped by the Corsair ML120 RGB Elite, although they are very close and probably within run-to-run variants. At maximum speed, the Light Wings high speed managed 45.9 degrees C, then came the ML120 at 44.4, with the Silent Wing 3 posting the lowest delta of 43.9 C. Although those results do follow the noise pattern, with the Silent Wing 3 being loudest at 41.4, followed by the ML120 at 40.5, and then the Light Wings high speed at 39.1. It's interesting that at similar RPM and noise levels, the standard Light Wings beats out the high speed version, although that is at its maximum speed, which will be its maximum performance and nightly efficiency, whereas the high speed version then still has some headroom and that little bit extra performance if it's needed. Next up, I tested the fans on the Be Quiet Silent Nuke 2. Again, this was done using Cinebench, getting a delta temperature against the ambient of the room. This time the 35 decibel test is just the cooler volume, not the total system. And once again, the standard Light Wings didn't hit that threshold, with all three at maximum RPM only hitting 33.6 decibels, managing to cool the CPU down to 50.6 degrees C over ambient. The Light Wings high speed took a degree C off that for 49.5, with the Silent Wings 3 just edging out the ML120 Elite this time, with 49.2 C for the Silent Wings and 49.4 for the RGB Elite. At their maximum speeds, there's very little separating the high-speed Light Wings, the Silent Wings 3 and the ML120 Elites, with all three being within 0.3 degrees C of each other, which is basically nothing. This time then, the high-speed light wings beat out the standard version owing to their more static pressure focused design. The Lightwing high-speed ML120 Elites and Silent Wings 3 were all within spitting distance, probably just within variants of each other. So either one of those three would make an excellent fan for going on a Radiator. Next up, I tested the fans as case fans in this Silent Base 802, with 2 fans in the front as intake and 1 in the rear as exhaust. I used the Silverstone AR03 again on the CPU, this time with its stock Silverstone fan. That's run at a constant 50% with the GPU fans set to 50% as well. And then I tuned the case fans down so that the entire system ran at 36 decibels. The stock Pure Wings 2 140mm fans got a CPU delta of 52.3 and a GPU of 53.5. The standard Light Wings then got 51.5 degrees C on the CPU and 44.3 on the GPU, with the high-speed variants getting an almost identical 51.6 and 44.8. The Silent Wings 3 didn't fare any better on the CPU really, with 51.2 degrees C, but they were the only fans that really made a significant dent in the GPU temps with 41.8 degrees C over ambient. And finally, the Corsair ML120 RGB Elite got 52 degrees C dead on the CPU and 43.6 degrees C on the GPU. So really, any of these fans could be used as a case fan according to those results. And what I've probably shown there is that in its airflow formation, this Silent Base 802 is a great case for cooling, and hasn't really enabled us to see much difference between the fans. The Silent Wings 3 knocked a couple of degrees C off the GPU, and I thought that was very odd and there might be something else going on there, but I checked everything else. I'll throw up a table of all the stats that I checked, and the CPU wattage, the GPU wattage, GPU fan speed, CPU fan speed, ambience, they're all about the same. The Silent Wings just managed to get a bit more air pushed under the GPU. One thing about using 120s instead of the stock 140s is the front mount doesn't have a full run of 120mm fan spacings, so it is a little limited where you can fit them. And I either fit the lowest of the fans half above the GPU and half below, or have it so that half the fan is feeding under the PSU shroud and not really cooling anything. So I mounted it in the higher position to get as much air into the main chamber of the case, and all were tested like that. So between the 4 120mm fans, it was all fair. The results in general, there's not a lot of difference between all the fans. I had been hoping for some more interesting results than this, but I think it just shows that at the premium end of the fan market, it is incredibly tight, and it's more the features and design that will separate them. And I think that goes to show just how well Be Quiet have done with these Light Wings fans, that they've done a ring RGB fan, even though in doing so they've lost 10mm from the internal diameter of the fan. They're still able to perform very close to the Silent Wings 3, which is their top tier fan, and also perform very well and comparable to the Corsair ML120 Elites, which are Corsair's top of the line fan. To test the difference in their light performance between the Be Quiet ring fans and the Corsair ML120s, which have an illuminated impeller, I got the room completely dark and placed the lit fan in the middle of the table to see how much of the table and also Dremel it illuminated, keeping the settings on the camera the same between both the fans, so the amount of light you see on the table should be comparable to the real world light. Although it is a little tricky with my camera to pick it up, it was slightly more illuminated than it looks on the screen. I also captured some footage on my phone, which I tried to set so it looked more comparable to what I was seeing in real life. Just bear in mind all the post-processing and stuff that happens on the camera on your phone and the footage taken on my normal camera, and the difference between those two would be much more realistic in the difference between the two fans. The Corsair though does give off more light, but I don't think Be Quiet will mind that at all. I don't think it's been their aim to create the brightest fan possible. With that ring design, they've stuck to something a little more subtle, just to give you a highlight of light in your case, a little bit more colour, keeping with the general design philosophy that Be Quiet has had for all these years. They do give the case a nice glow. I think they've got the level just right. Any lower, it wouldn't really be worth it. It'd be too subtle. But I think the best thing about these fans is that they are so quiet. They have a great RPM range, and I ran the fans in this case, the high speed on the Silent Loop 2 and the standard as case fans, at their minimum RPM, which was just 10% PWM signal. The standard light wings went all the way down to 150 RPM and the high speed ones 250. So they've got a massive RPM range, and at those minimum speeds they are silent. You cannot hear them. If you can hear any noise emanating from the case, it's because I have to put the GPU fan constant minimum speed. Otherwise, with the 0 decibel mode, it kicks on every now and then and gets quite annoying when you're in the middle of a good take. Anyway, if you are after some fans with a nice amount of lighting, nothing too gaudy, and you want some of the quietest fans you can get, these light wings are a perfect choice. They are a little expensive though. I'll throw up a table of the prices as there are quite a few variants. The price varies a little depending where you get them from, but they could be bought for £23 for a single 120, up to £66 for a 3-pack of the 140mm fans. And whilst that is fairly expensive for a fan, it's quite comparable to most premium fans, with the ML Elites and the Silent Wings similarly priced. The RGB hub that comes with these 3-packs is quite good. It really grips onto the RGB connector, so if the wires get tugged a little bit, it's not going to come flying out. It is just a splitter though, it's not a controller. It has to receive a signal from a motherboard or another controller before the lights on the fans will come on at all. And you are then dependent on what you have to plug it into in how you can control the LEDs. For instance, I've just got them on the Gigabyte motherboard, and the RGB software for Gigabyte motherboards isn't fantastic. The lighting modes are a little simple. You don't get ones, for instance, where the colours will run across the fans in order. And I did try it with the fans plugged into the hub or daisy chains, and it didn't make any difference in how they behaved on that Gigabyte software. I don't have anything else to test it to, so you might have better luck with other software. But the Corsair fans, for instance, come with a lighting node. Then you've got the IQ software, and there are tons of functionality within that software to control the LEDs. There's also not a PWM splitter or anything like that to connect the PWM connectors of the fans, which would have been a nice addition, especially for the amount of money that you're spending. But then when I was setting up for this conclusion, I noticed that on the box it has Essential. Be Quiet has 3 lines in its product stack. There is the Essential, which is actually the bottom rung of products. Then you have Premium, and then High End. The Silent Loop 2 for instance, is premium, but the Silent Wings 3 fans, for instance, are high-end, the top of the line model. So I'm not sure why they've been labelled essential, especially given the performance. The performance is almost in line with the Silent Wings 3, their top of the range fan. It's fantastic what they've done, given a 10mm less internal diameter of those fans. And maybe it's just because it's their first effort, and they've done a cracking job. I mean, particularly as Be Quiet does, these fans are silent. So if you're after the quietest fan possible with just a nice touch of RGB and nothing too in your face, then the Light Wings should definitely be the top of your list. Thanks all for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Comment down below what you think of Be Quiet's first venture into RGB fans. Do you like that ring design, or would you have preferred they go with a lit impeller like the Corsair? Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, links of which will be down below. Next up, I will probably have a roundup of recent mods. I may not be all that active on the channel for the next couple of weeks, as I'm doing a massive 8K group test for Custom PC Magazine, so make sure you check that out when it's released. So that's it from me and the Be Quiet Light Wings fans. Until the next one, keep building, keep modding, keep making computers. See you then.